Hello and welcome to the Joy Sports Track. I'm Gary Al Smith, and from now to the top of the hour, I'll be looking at the trending issues, especially locally, that are making headlines and have made headlines since our last major show yesterday. Today, what made the news, especially if you're listening to our midday edition with Benedict Owusu, was that Ghana Football Association Executive Committee member Wilfred Osei-Kweku, popularly called Palmer, was prevented from traveling abroad last week. And according to our checks, the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service directed the outspoken football administrator not to leave the country following an ongoing investigation. And to that effect, all ports of entry and exits in the country were alerted to that. And there's more in the following interview we would have with Amanda Clinton, who is a legal representative for Wilfred Osei-Kweku, aka Palmer, and also was a member of the legal team for the GFA in their issues with the government. Thank you very much for joining us, Amanda Clinton.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, so first of all, as we do customarily, could you kindly confirm that your client was prevented from traveling abroad as we have reported?
Yes, he was prevented on several occasions from traveling to a West African country last week.
Okay. What were the circumstances, please?
Just a normal private travel to a West African country. And as soon as he got to the airport, they were just like, you're on a ban list. And he didn't understand it. His passport was given back to him. And when he went to immigration to inquire further, they didn't really give him much information, and then later said that the CID had said that, you know, he couldn't travel, and it was coming from government officials, basically.
To what extent have you gone, because this happened last week, to what extent have you gone to pursue this and to find out why this happened from a legal point of view?
Well, I mean, we're definitely still looking into it because, you know, onus is on us to find out where this order is coming from. We're just slightly concerned that, you know, the court order that was placed on the 12th of July was that the Registrar General was going to hold assets. So this civil matter, because it's not a criminal matter yet, it's a civil matter, is dealt with. So the Registrar General is merely holding the assets until the substantive case is made. But what is quite concerning is the fact that Palmer forms part of the 17 untainted and unaccused executive committee members. So CID has not actually accused any one of them, including Palmer, of any acts. And they're untainted in terms of, you know, the referees are being dealt with. I think there's 12 officials being dealt with. So if you are categorically saying that these people, you know, de facto now don't form part of this, it just seems rather wide that a civil court order could be extended to such an extent, because he's not a flight risk.
Yeah.
He's never been indicated. I mean, that's why he's spoken quite openly, because he's never been indicated in any form of bribery or fraud. He's never even been accused of it. And if it was you or I, you know, a personal citizen, going off to the airport and, you know, you have something in a civil court going on, this, you know, it shouldn't happen. And, you know, I think the executive committee members are slightly concerned only because 2 days before the 12th of July order, government was offering to pay all GFA salaries. So you're about to wind down a company, yet you're offering to pay the salaries of all, you know, everybody from a company limited by guarantee. You know, so these are some of the concerns where we're saying that this is a company law issue. It's being dealt with in the civil courts. And under no circumstances should he have been stopped, because he's not a flight risk. CID has never identified him as being involved in any of this.
Okay.
And so it's basically, it's a wide reach, basically, from government.
Yeah, it's a wide reach. I mean, in your deliberations, do you perhaps feel that Wilfred Osei-Kweku, I mean, as vocal and as vociferous and as open-minded as he is to the media on issues since this Anas expose happened, do you think that it may be a reason why the government is trying to, I don't want to say strong arm him, but to maybe teach him a lesson?
I think we should look at, we should always look at a bigger picture more than GFA. I think we should look at it from a government perspective in terms of government really does have to watch it at this stage.
Yeah.
Because we are not a police state. We're not a totalitarian state where it's controlled by political police force, that secretly supervises things. And so if you've got a civil matter in court, and if you've got people who CID is not accusing them, they're untainted and unaccused, 17 out of 22, then it shouldn't go so far as to stop people flying to a West African country. And to tell you the truth, when this ban came into effect, I think there was something going on in Russia.
Yeah.
So like a confederation meeting. So that's when it started. But it's just an overreach by government. And if government doesn't take care, it's just reaching far too far for a civil case.
So, next steps. What are you going to do with your clients? Are you going to seek some form of legal redress? Because then, I imagine that his ticket that was paid for was not honored. Would you seek, certain damages from the government? What are you going to do?
It was a West African state. We can live with missing one flight. We're just hoping that if we work together with immigration and they in turn work together with CID, this whole matter can be quashed quite quickly. And all parties will identify that Palmer is not a flight risk, has never been a flight risk, has never been accused of being in any form part of the bribery scandal. And so we would rather just work with all parties in order to ensure that all EXCO members can fly. And right from the beginning, to tell you the truth, the EXCO wanted to work with government and other stakeholders in order to restore football. So that's the main aim in terms of, a coordinated effort from all football people to clean house and deal with football. That is the main strategy. Basically, it's not to attack government, it's not to, belittle government, but it's just to say that football people can clean house and should be allowed to clean house, basically.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up, this weekend you were on one of the television stations in an interview, right? This weekend, that was on Saturday, I believe.
Yes, on Kwesi TV.
Yes, on Kwesi TV. And you made some very good points, but just to give us an overview of where we are for the benefit of my listeners with all this GFA versus government issues from the legal point of view, we have not been in the know for a while. Where are we now, where you are concerned from the legal point of view, where the GFA is concerned?
Okay. Well, I think the general public is somehow misled as to, they think that the GFA has completely been wound up, etc. It hasn't. What happened on the 12th of June was that the court directed that the Registrar General should hold the assets of GFA until the substantive matter is dealt with. And that's quite normal for court proceedings. When you have quite a lot of assets at stake, someone like the Registrar General can hold the assets until the final matter is decided. So GFA is not dissolved. And in any case, it takes between 1 to 3 years for dissolution to occur. And as we stand, the GFA has gone, is going to apply to the Supreme Court and has filed in order for the Supreme Court to review the matter, basically.
Okay. All right. Many, many thanks for your time, and we appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Amanda Clinton speaking there. She is a legal representative for Osei Kweku and also a member of the legal team that is looking into affairs of the GFA while they try to untangle themselves from the fallout of the Anas issue. This is the Joy Sports Track on Joy 99.7 FM, 23 minutes after 1 here in our studios. And that's how we began the show, with that bit of news. So essentially, our report on the midday news said that last week at the Kotoka International Airport, Osei Palmer was traveling abroad for a football project. We've been told now by his legal rep that it was to a West African country, and he was prevented from doing so by immigration officials. And according to our checks at the time, which have been confirmed again, Mr. Palmer had gone through all the formalities at the airport, but eventually was told he couldn't travel because of an order from above. And that's been also confirmed. And Joy Sports checks indicated that he was prevented due to an ongoing investigation into football corruption by certain individuals of the injuncted GFA. We've also been told right now that from his legal representative that he actually hasn't been accused of anything, which is why they are surprised this was done at all. Let me bring Hans Mensah-Addo into the discussion here. Hans, yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, so we heard it. Pretty interesting because we know that other GFA officials, had been able to travel. George Free, Kwekweya, and others had all been able to travel. Exco officials. So this was a bit surprising.
Yeah, very interesting development there, and I don't know what to make of this one. Okay, my initial thought is that it's a bit draconian, if you ask me. I think that.
Oh, in her words, it's an overreach.
Yes, it's a bit overbearing, if you ask me. First of all, there's an ongoing process, legal process to liquidate the FA as it is. Secondly, I have heard that the Ghana Football Association is being investigated in a matter that has something to do with money laundering. I don't know if you've heard that.
We had that in the immediate fallout of when they got their office and stuff.
Right. So, unless Osei Palmer is, as a person, is of interest to the investigators, then I really don't see how you have to prevent the man from traveling again, especially when other people are being allowed to travel. On the issue of him being a flight risk, there are various ways by which authorities, of course, determine that he's a man of means. He can afford any flight tickets anywhere in this world. But you also have to look at the fact that he's got business and family interests here. Will he simply abandon those business interests and his family and then abscond? I really don't think so. That is why I feel that.
Yeah, so which is why I asked the lawyer if she also thought that it was a way of clipping him behind the ear and saying that, boss, if you slow down with the way you are talking.
He's fighting his own battles with the government as far as this whole GFA issue is concerned. But let's stay civil. Has he stepped on anybody's toes? He's been speaking his mind like any other Ghanaian. I have been speaking my mind. I don't think I'll be prevented from traveling. Unless, of course, I pick up my passport tomorrow and get to the airport and then...
and they tell you that,
Exactly. But I've been speaking my mind about it. You have been speaking your mind. Everybody has been speaking his mind. I think that our constitution allows us that privilege and right. And so I don't think that it should be... and I want to choose this word carefully, victimized for exercising that right. If he's not a subject of a criminal investigation, I really don't think that this step is necessary.
Right. Thank you very much, Hans Mensah-Addo. So we move on from that issue. We'll be hearing more, I'm sure, in our subsequent bulletins. Once there's a reaction from the legal team of Wilfred Osei Palmer. Also, if you heard in her final submissions there that the GFA will be going to the Supreme Court to look at certain aspects of their case with the government as well in relation to their dissolution, which, as she has also told us, could take anywhere from 1 to 3 years. Very interesting indeed.
I cited the Ghana Airways dissolution as an example.
Yeah.
It's been over 9 years, if I'm not mistaken, and they are still on it. So for Ghanaians who are expecting a quick resolution of this particular issue,
you might be in for a long ride. Yeah. All right. So while all this has been happening, the football has been going on, at least at the national team level. We know that the key aim of the formation of the two-man liaison team was to ensure that all teams at the national level that had qualified for international competitions were able to do so unhindered. The first team have gone and they are on their way back. We understand that the Black Princesses will be coming in 4 batches after their, you can insert your preferred word there, campaign in the World Cup. One of the guys at my job online is asking me to use the word abysmal. So Abubakar, yes, abysmal is what I'll use for you. But I'll let my listeners also use the word that he wants. Abysmal campaign in France there. So David Duncan, former national team coach, has been having his thoughts on the Princesses and the way they've shipped in goals and the way they've performed in France. Let's hear him.
I think that, people will cite excuses like, preparations and all of that, But that aside, I think the strength of the teams that they came up against too were way beyond them. I don't think that it is too much of news. If you get beaten by France, you get beaten by Holland, these are sides that are way ahead of them, in terms of everything, various components of the game. You're talking about maybe their preparation physically, in terms of tactics and all that they have to enable them get one over the Queens. I think that they have it in terms of advantage over us, so it's no big deal. I think we deserve what we got, don't we?
David Duncan speaking there, and don't forget that the Princesses shipped in 8 goals and also scored once. They won 2. They lost, two games and won 1. But by the time they won the 1, I mean, it was a mere formality and a matter of pride for them. Yusuf Basigi led them into this tournament. Let's hear him.
Well, I would say it's been good for the game or for our performance, I would say, because our rehearsals was really up to expectation.
Is it a kind of performance you expected?
Yeah, this is the Princesses that I know, but unfortunately we didn't start well but ended well.
So where have they been? Because this is the team it means they've been missing in action for 2 important games. Where have they been?
It's unfortunate. I don't know. So I kept reminding them of the team Princesses during the qualifiers, and each time we were to play a game, I always reflect them to the game against Cameroon. I always ask them to reflect their minds, cast their minds way back against Cameroon in Cape Coast, so that would work for us. But unfortunately, things were not working as expected.
I know once you win, it's easy to say that it all worked according to plan. Do you look at the totality of the team's performance to say today that you are entirely satisfied because every step of the way or every department worked according to plan?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm satisfied because our set target has not been met, because we came with the intention of at least getting to crossing the borderline so that it will be an achievement. Unfortunately, it didn't happen so. And I will say I'm satisfied because we are going home with at least 3 points.
Yusuf Basigi speaking there to Veronica Kome. We speak now to Rosalyn Amo, who is a long-time watcher of the women's game and has served in various capacities in women's football in the country here on the Joy Sports Track. Thank you for joining us, Auntie Rose.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, we heard from Yusuf Basigi and we heard David Duncan as well. David Duncan said, we can always talk about the fact that the team didn't prepare well, but the fact of the matter is that the quality they went to meet was not something they could beat. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that, of course, a lot of people believe that there was, even no matter how well we prepared, there was no way we were going to beat the French and the Dutch. But I have a different opinion. You realize that it's more or less ended up with 2 matches being their trial matches. The trial matches they never had. And so it badly exposed weaknesses and did not do anything to enhance the show of their strengths. But I think that after those 2 matches, they were gradually settling in, and then they showed what they could actually do against the Netherlands. It's unfortunate, but I always say that anytime you meet an European side, you are already disadvantaged because they have the facilities, they are better, and they have the technical expertise. We don't have those things. So we need to double up the situation of maybe we rather end up not preparing well to meet those teams. And it has always been our bane at such competitions.
Now, in terms of the team's performances in the 3 games they played, in as much as we don't want to single out anybody because it's a team performance, which players do you think have raised their stock by their time they land in Ghana in the next couple of hours?
Well, I think that collectively they've done well, but if you look at where Sandra also and Star seem to have picked up from where she left off when she last played in the Under-20 tournament at Papua New Guinea. She had just graduated from the Under-17 side and she was straight on the Under-20 side. And I think in France, she showed it. What she lacked was a very effective partner. She didn't get a good striking partnership, and so we didn't see. But I think that she worked hard. She was always the attention of most of the defenders because they knew what she was capable of doing. But if you look at Victor Tantua, I think that she's a workaholic. I mean, she was at the Under-17 team, and this was her first Under-20, but she worked hard. And the fact that she was voted the star of the match yesterday proves what she has been able to do. And that's Chinebua, the defender. She cleans up the back, even though they consider some bad goals. I think that being her first time at any international tournament, she proved that if she's maintained, given the necessary assistance, she'll be one of the key defenders that we can rely on. But I think that the others, they are work in progress and they need to work. I don't know whether they'll still qualify for the Under-20 tournament, but they don't. And we need to prepare them for the Black Queens in future. Then whoever handles them would have to work a lot on them and let them get more training matches, more matches to play so that they can improve upon whatever they have. They are talented, but it is the lack of training that usually make them look as if they do not know how to play.
Now, you made a point about the fact that anytime we play the Europeans, we are already disadvantaged because of a lack of facilities. So one would ask, I mean, to be the best in the world, you have to play with the best in the world. Why then do we go for these competitions anyway when we know that we can't give them adequate preps?
Unfortunately, you have to go because, I mean, we have gone and despite our disadvantage, we seem to do well. It is only, if you look at it, it is the lack of preparation. I always say that then if we get adequate preparation, we can do well. It's not always that the Europeans will look better than us. I mean, if you're able to play the French to a 2-2 draw, and the last time we showed up at a World Cup, and we didn't miss out on head-to-head count. I think that it is good preparation, that the lack of it, that has always been our bane. If, for instance, we decide that, look, 4 weeks to a competition, we will camp in Europe where they will have access to the facility. They don't necessarily have to play the high-profile matches, but they will get consistent teams like the sides that are very tried and tested to play. It enhances their efficiency. The coach is able to know where they lack and where they are strong in, so that we can work on all those before we go into the competition. But when we are always looking at the cost, we are always looking at the cost involved in that we want to cut the preparation. I don't think it's in our favor. We will have to be there because if we want to develop women's football, that is one of the surest way of developing it. If not, then as a country, we would have to decide on whether we want to do women's football at all, because then what will be the point in growing the game at home, developing it at the grassroots, and yet when it comes to the international level, we do not want to participate. We have to give them that confidence and hope, and we must look for the money to prepare the team so that when they show up at the international scene, they can do well.
You know, before the team left, I interviewed Coach Basiki here on this show, and I put it to him that, I mean, it's our 5th consecutive appearance, and in all previous occasions, we had failed to go out of the group. We've added another one to it. And he said that the lack of preps, which you are given as a key reason why we didn't do well, was not a problem for him, and so on. So, I mean, it looks a bit revisionist. That's what we are doing. But the fact of the matter is that we have failed to progress from the group stages again. I mean, why do we...
Well, I don't know whether anybody would say that good preparation is not the panacea to do well. I mean, if you don't prepare well, you don't do well. Of course, there are some people who, because of where they are situated, they may qualify. But then when they come in, they may never do well comparatively. Look at Paraguay. Paraguay will always qualify because in the South American area, there aren't many people who do so well when it comes to women's football. I mean, the last time Argentina showed up, they didn't do that well. So that is another aspect of it. They also have the facilities, but they don't have the skill and talent as much as we do. For us, we all know the bane. It is lack of preparation and the absence of facilities. I think that in the past few years, if you look at the last two competitions that we went, Canada and then Papua New Guinea, we were eliminated on the head-to-head rule. We had 6 points in both games in both competitions, but because we had drawn or we had lost a crucial game, we were eliminated. For me, I think that we can always build upon what we have, but then this back and forth of we prepare well and then the next time we take things for granted, we do not prepare well. If Nigeria can prepare well and go to become finalists in 2 competitions, I think that we can also do that, if, provided we only prepare well and we have that confidence. And for me, it is sad because then this is one of the best under-20 sides we could have assembled. These girls were girls who played in the under-17. Some of them also played in the under-20 2016. So that exposure and experience is there. But those alone are not enough. You need to be tournament ready. You need to be in shape. Already, we do not play enough matches. I mean, even if you are playing in the local league, they don't play adequate matches to make up for the lost times. Because, for instance, if you need to play at the international level, you should play at least a minimum of about 30 to 32 matches. Because of the way our leagues are structured, they don't get that ample. Unfortunately, the league had even been brought to a halt because of the impasse between government and the AFC. So we were not able to make up for those number of matches. And then the trial matches that were supposed to help them also identify their flaws were not there. So naturally, you cannot go into a competition against a team like a host nation that are so desperate to win the under-20 tournament for the first time. They have never won it before. They want to host and win. The Dutch, of course, even though for me I don't see them as any extraordinary side, they took their chances. Also, again, they prepared well. They had the facilities, and that is it.
Okay,
New
all
Zealand
right.
also had the same, but we showed that if we had also had the same level of preparation, probably we would have been telling a different story.
Right. Many thanks, Rosalind Amo. We appreciate your time as ever. And our cameras will be at the airport to see to the girls coming home pretty shortly later. Moving on from one national team, the under-20 women's national team are those who were discussing. They have gone for a tournament and they are coming home with a lack of progress from the group stage. The under-20 men also have qualified for a tournament and they are set to return for the African Cup of Nations after you recall that they didn't qualify for the last edition in 2017 in Zambia. They were led this time by Jimmy Kobler to win on a regate against Benin, and Jimmy Kobler is on the line. Thank you for joining us, Coach.
Thank you very much, my brother.
Yes, and congratulations for qualifying this time round. I mean, I've heard you speak to the issues, but how excited are you, and what does this mean for your group that you've qualified for the under-20 AFCON?
Well, we're happy. We are grateful to God because we believe that we really started from a very low key. When I say low key, you know, what was happening in the country, there was no football. So for us to move that state to that level, for us to be able to qualify, we need to be happy and we need to be grateful to God.
Right. I mean, from the technical point of view, we've just heard from David Duncan, who said that the under-20 women's lack of performance in France in the World Cup was due to a lack of preparation. And we spoke to your counterpart, Yusuf Basigi, before he left Ghana about the lack of preparation. He said it wouldn't be any problem. We saw what happened. They've shipped in 8 goals and scored just 1. You are going to this tournament as well. Are you afraid that you may have similar problems in terms of lack of preparation?
Well, we believe we've learned from that as Ghanaians, and we have already started talking to the authority to help us get 1 or 2 games out of the country before we get there. So we hope we don't go through where they went through. We're with them in Pram, and I tell you, we're just praying to God to have mercy, because if you go into a World Cup, we are even going to an African Cup tournament and go into a World Cup where you are not able to move out of Ghana, even to Togo, to play a game, to see what your boys or your girls can do in times of this. I thought the preparation for them wasn't too bad, wasn't too good. So for us, we've learned from that, and we're hoping to make sure we have adequate preparation before we get to the tournament.
Okay, and in terms of the fact that you can lose your players, it's been a key issue that I've heard being discussed. Between now and the time the AFCON comes around, it is possible that your key players can decide to go out of the country. You might not have access to them for the tournament. You know the issues I'm talking about because of the football situation. How are you and your management looking to work around that end? Do you have a plan B?
Sure, we always have a plan B. If you do follow us, we played against Algeria with 4 players who were coming from Europe who started, and we're even having still 2 of them at the bench, meaning we play with 6 outside of professional players. This time we couldn't get any of them, but we were able to stay through. And so we always plan for A. If it does not go well, we think of the B. So the B must always be there for you. You don't wait until you cannot get the A before you go looking for the B. It will be too late.
Okay. Many thanks, Jimmy Kobler. We appreciate your time. And
Thank
congratulations
you very much,
again.
my brother.
Yeah. So that's Jimmy Kobler, coach of the Black Satellite speaking there. Hans, in studio with me. We'll move on to something pretty quickly, but your thoughts on what Rosalind Amu was saying, and then of the women's game and what Jimmy Kobler has said.
On Rosalind's submission, I think we make too many excuses in this country. Way too many excuses. Yes, you cannot talk about what the princesses did in France without considering the fact that football has come to a halt and considering the fact that they didn't have the best of preparation. But we heard Yusuf Basigi. He told us explicitly that it wasn't going to be a problem. And again, we continue to make, the issue of preparation seem as if you don't play against a European team, you haven't had an adequate, you haven't had a good preparation. What do you need to prepare? You need a camping base. You need a good turf. You need the basic stuff. You understand me? What is it really that France had that we didn't have?
Yeah.
What is it really? I want to understand.
Well, Rosalind says that, in terms of facilities, in terms of, training regimen, Hans, you know what she means. The kind of, even the physical training, the mental training is different. The teams they play for on a weekly basis, the quality, exposure.
Let's build the argument around the level of competition we have here. Okay, let's say that the French players are playing maybe in the Women's Champions League. They are playing in better competition and stuff like that. But let's not make the argument as if once the girls got into camp, they didn't have good preparation. We heard Yusuf Basigi. For me, I think that we have to stop making these excuses. And when we qualify for these tournaments, let's stop, setting basic targets. If you listen to Basigi, it appears that once he got 3 points, it's not too bad. Please, it was terrible. We wanted to get out of the group. You go to a tournament because you want to go win it. Otherwise, why are you even going? And I heard you put a question to Rosalind. If you feel that, the Europeans already have a head start, then what's the point, really? And so, if we are going to be going to these tournaments and come back and be making excuses that we didn't get good preparation, we knew the sort of preparation we required. Once we didn't get that preparation, maybe we should have said it earlier on that, look, we haven't had the best of preparation, so let's not expect that we are going to be making it out of the group. We're only going because we've qualified and we have to play. We're only going because we want to expose the girls. Then everybody is clear in his mind. But let's not make it seem as if that we are going to compete. And then when we go and we don't perform, we start, naming the various problems. Look, everybody has problems.
Yeah.
In the course of your job, you've got issues. You've got problems that you need to work around. The fact is that every team at the tournament has got problems that they need to work around. Okay? For Yusuf Basigi, if it was a team that was ready to win the championship, we probably wouldn't have needed him.
Sure.
You understand me? He was there because there is a problem to deal with as far as the team is concerned. He was there because you're supposed to prepare the team, whatever the challenges may be. And so let's cool it down with these excuses because it's the same rhetoric over and over again. every time we go for a major tournament and we don't perform, the rhetoric is that, well, we didn't have good preparation and we didn't get this friendly match and we didn't get that friendly match. For how long? And that's really my question. For how long are we going to come up with the same excuse over and over and over again? We've heard Jimmy Cobbler today. He says he's going to have a plan A and a plan B. God forbid we go and things do not go according to plan A and plan B. The excuses are going to be football has come to a halt in the country. The excuses are going to be, well, we didn't get any international friendlies to prepare for before the tournament itself. We keep coming up with excuses when there is a job to be done. You see, sometimes it's simple. Put it simply. Well, we failed. How difficult is that? Sometimes you have to put it that simply. We came up against better teams. There's no harm in that from where I sit. Absolutely no harm. You've gone, you couldn't compete, finito. That's it. Let's not keep coming up with these excuses and we didn't have good preparation and we didn't get friendly matches to play and we didn't do this. It's becoming one too many, really.
It's becoming tiresome, he says. So Hans Mensah giving us his perspective on these issues as well. We are coming up to 10 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 minutes to 2 on Joy 99.7 FM. This is the Sports Track and I'm Gary Al Smith. We go into boxing to finish off the show. It's the Kabik fight night and it's Saturday. It was... Hans will give us the details.
Joy 99.7.
Now, after Azuma Nelson's birthday, we had a lot of talk about what could be done and what the next steps were. This weekend, we had a semblance of probably the glimpses of a world title fight,
Yeah.
And Hans, tell us about it.
Okay, so the headline bout was between Patrick Alote and Badru Lusimbe, and that was a good fight. I saw a Ghanaian boxer who potentially can win as a world title. There are a few things he needs to work on. I think that technically he's a shade above the average Ghanaian boxer who is not a world champion. His decision making is often right. His use of the ring is perfect. He knows how to set traps for his opponent. What I realized he lacked was that, he lacked the strength in his feet. He said that it prevented him from taking risk. There were moments when he rattled his opponent and he had to go in for the kill. But when he tried, the counters were such that he knew he was going to go down if he kept going.
Yeah.
So he had to withdraw and then re-strategize. So I can count about 6 moments where he rattled his opponent when he should have gone in. But he kept hesitating because I think he realized that his legs might probably give in if he takes a bad punch. So he wasn't going in for the kill. So I think that he looks good. I looked at the WBO super welterweight rankings. He's ranked 15th. And with this win, I believe that he may be able to climb up a bit up the ranking, which will put him in the picture for the world title shot. Crucially, as you'd expect, he talked about the world title. He wants to be a world champion. But you see, it's one thing saying I want to be a world champion and actually putting in the work and making the right moves to become to land the shot in the first place and becoming a world champion. One of the key things, critically, will be for him to start getting fight against the other people on the ranking. It's critical. It helps in your movement up the ranking. It puts you in the global picture also. It puts you out there in terms of the American audience. We know what the American audience mean in boxing. Is essentially the global audience we are talking about. And so he needs to start getting fights against the people within the rankings as well. That is also very important. We also saw a heavyweight. When was the last time I heard a Ghanaian heavyweight?
Yeah.
And this was a good Ghanaian heavyweight. Knocked out his opponent in 2 rounds. It raises questions about the quality of that opponent. But what is refreshing is that he looks solid, and I'm talking about Harrison. He looks solid. He looks like somebody that, if the right things are done, if he gets the right coach, if he's on the right training regimen, if the diet is right, if the training is right, he could, put himself in the global picture as well. But speaking to people, I realized one thing. I think that somebody drew my attention to it. The challenge for him in Ghana is that he won't be able to get sparring partners because there are not many heavyweight boxers in the country. My understanding is that you find a lot of them in the northern part of the country, northern Ghana.
Sure.
But the challenge for them is that they don't have the facilities to be able to train and develop.
I mean, even those in the south don't
exactly. So it's a difficulty for him getting sparring partners. And I wondered, once the person may, well, okay, wow, he's probably the second or third Ghanaian heavyweight I've heard of. So how is he training? Who is he sparring? You know, and for heavyweight, it's important that you are sparring heavyweight.
Sure.
It's basic. I mean, you can't be heavyweight and be sparring cruiserweight and welterweight, and you're not going to get that level of competition that you require. So it's a difficulty as well. Mate also looked good. I've watched him for a while, and he doesn't seem to be developing as quickly as he's supposed to be developing.
Yeah.
Even though he won his fight. I saw him through the amateur ranks. I've seen a few of his professional fights. Something is not quite right with him. He also wants to be a world champion, but it's a long shot. He needs to do a lot of things right. He's not on the WBO's ranking as a middleweight. And if you look at the names on the ranking and you look at the boxer we are talking about, it's a very, very long shot. But hey, Gary, dreams do come true.
Anyway, so Hans Mensah giving us his 411 on what happened this weekend, and the Ugandan boxer reminds me of the guy who came also to Ghana and taunted Isaac Dugbe.
Yeah.
You know, remember the things he said, he received a sound beating. This guy, Batru Lusambia, he came to town into Thursday, and then on Friday he said that he was going to beat Alote and take his wife.
Yeah. His wife was there actually.
His wife was there as well. He didn't get to take his wife. So that was what happened at the weekend, the Kabek fight tonight. Very good as well. So we'll now call it a show. But before then, a quick reminder of what happened here and there. You might have heard this morning at the Sports Center, but in football, there was a lot of kicking. There was a lot of goals in England and elsewhere as well. Let's get the European wrap.
Barcelona lifted the Spanish Super Cup for a record extending 13 times by coming from behind to beat Sevilla 2-1 on Sunday, thanks to a stunning strike from France winger Ousmane Dembele and a penalty save in stoppage time from Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Bayern Munich cruised to a third consecutive DFL Super Cup success with a comfortable 5-0 victory over Eintracht Frankfurt, but Niko Kovac's first competitive game in charge against his former club was soured by a knee injury to David Alaba. Paris Saint-Germain began their Ligue 1 title defense in style with a comfortable 3-0 victory over Caen on Sunday, with goals from Neymar, Adrian Rabiot and Timothy Weah. And Inter Milan beat Atletico Madrid 1-0 at the Wanda Metropolitano in the final match of the International Champions Cup in Madrid.
Right, so that wrap was by Moses Yaboa. Elsewhere though, as we know, there was a lot of football in England.
And he still might get in. Shaw! Luke Shaw scores for Manchester United. His first goal for the club. And Jose Mourinho is a relieved man as he trudges off the pitch.
Stealing in, Pedro surely sealing it for Chelsea. Huddersfield have fought back in the last few minutes, but their resistance is broken now. It is Chelsea's game.
Bernardo Silva, what a finish! Left-footed, it flew past Petr Cech to his right. It's 2-0, and it looks very much as though the champions are going to begin the new Premier League season with a victory. Got it through to Mane! It's a second goal for Sadio Mane. And it's touched, a first touch for Daniel Sturridge, and Liverpool have 4.
They had 4 indeed. A lot was said from Friday about Jose Mourinho and his main man Paul Pogba. Is Pogba looking to move to Barcelona? Apparently, some quotes attributed to him said that he had issues, but if he spoke, he would be fine. Let's hear from Jose.
Pre-season was very hard, and we needed this fantastic spirit by the players to manage this performance in this result. Of course, some fantastic performances. Of course, the boys with the proper pre-season, they were in a much better condition. Pogba was a monster. We thought maximum 60 minutes, but he managed the 80.
So Jose Mourinho speaking there, not touching at all on those issues. Meanwhile, Pep Guardiola also started in style, beating Arsenal, and they hit them for 2.
An excellent performance, counting in the moment of the season that we are. A lot of players with a lack of condition in terms of physicality, but of course we are more than 2 seasons together and we know more or less what we have to do in different parts, but we were so aggressive in the middle and back, so we make a good performance.
And Jurgen Klopp, whose side had a good preseason, scoring up to 26 goals, was very happy with their 4-0 demolition of West Ham.
Not surprisingly good, but of course it was better than I could have expected, because you see a lot in the preseason what you hope you see on the pitch. Today I saw a lot of that. That's really cool, but that's all. So 4-0 means we scored 4, which is good. We conceded no goal, which is exactly the same importance. So it's all good for today.
So Jurgen Klopp speaking there. And then the Joy Sports Track with me, Gary Al Smith. Don't forget that Premier League coverage continues on television as well. Sports Today. You can watch all the highlights right now with Nathaniel Atto. And we are reminding you that the Fantasy Football League, the home of it in this country, is on myjoyonline.com/fantasy. We'll see you next week. This has been the Joy Sports Track. Bye-bye.